The Motivational Mindset Podcast with Switch Motivation. Hello and welcome to episode 11. My name is Richard Knight, and this week I'll be talking to Ali Stewart, the Director and Principal Executive Coach from Ali Stewart & Company. We'll be talking all things coaching, breathing, and of course, motivation.
Well, good morning, Richard, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here with you. Thank you so much for inviting me along. And good morning to everybody listening.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I'm sure they're really intrigued to hear about Ali Stewart and Co. or company, depending on whether you want to do that. It'd be fantastic just to spend a little bit of time just letting people know what it is you do. Oh, and also, which I also ask my guests, is why? Why do you do what you do?
Well, why I do what I do is because a long time ago, somebody slapped a book in my hand upside down and said, Ali, I think you'll like this. And I'd never met this chap before. And I thought, how can you possibly know what kind of book I'm going to like? And we're talking about, in the 1990s, this is, we had an office in Salisbury, and I turned the book over and it was Be Your Own Life Coach by Fiona Harold, who was the self-styled queen of life coaching in the country at the time. And I read that book and I thought, this is what I've been doing all my life. I didn't know it had a name. And at the same time, I went on the Insights accreditation, which is a psychometric tool. And the two things just came together. And I was doing company secretarial kind of admin stuff, office management. I knew it wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. So I got back to the office after that accreditation and said, I just want to do this now. I can coach people with this tool and make a massive difference to their lives. So I set up Ali Stewart & Co., coaching you to achieve and grow on the 1st of July, 2004. And we're still going. We've just celebrated 20 years in business.
Oh, fantastic. Congratulations for that. I mean, it's a fantastic thing to be able to do, what with everything that gets thrown at us through a business, well, and generally in life, everything changes so rapidly. It's fantastic to do that. So that side of things. So that's quite a sort of a moment of clarity for you, I presume. And is that something that you've sort of carried on throughout your working at Ali Stewart and Co? Is that something that has always been part of your interactions with your clients and people you've worked with, enabling them to understand their own, journey, if you like? Is that something
that is all about what we do? And of course, to see another person grow and develop is the best feeling in the world. So why would I not want to do that? So yes, it has served me well all these years, and I love my clients. I love the light bulb moments going on. So I get a tremendous buzz and excitement out of helping others to grow.
Yeah, fantastic. And it's something that we mentioned earlier before we started recording the podcast here, that I'd been on a podcast myself with a fantastic chap called Mark Terrell, who's into the motivated business side of things. And he was talking to me about what I do, and I do stuff on the side, and I'm an actor as well, and I do all these other exciting things. And he said, you can notice the difference when people talk about the thing that energizes them and motivates them. It makes a difference. And although we're on audio with this particular one, I'm sat here on Zoom with Ali now, and I can see Ali's face light up immediately when you're talking about that development and people changing and those light bulb moments. It's absolutely fantastic position to be in. It's a privilege to help people, I presume, in terms of that.
It is a complete privilege, and the fact that people trust us to do this with them. Yes, absolutely, Richard.
Yeah. And in terms of people agreeing to work with you, or you work with them, as it were, or that partnership to come up with it, how do people go about sort of, saying, yes, please, this is exactly what we want? Is there a set journey that you find people go on towards the commitment, or does it differ greatly? You know,
No.
somewhat of a leading question there, I presume, but you know where I'm coming from.
I do, absolutely. There is a set point for people because part of what I do, I don't just look at the mind, which is the psychometric tool.
Mhm.
I also develop leaders to lead with strength, dignity, and compassion.
Mhm.
I develop people to let their natural brilliance to shine. The starting point is always to just look at yourself first, which is the psychometric tool.
Right. Mhm.
So, who do you think you are right now? And we use that as the mirror they hold up. This is what you said about you. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Do you like what you see? Is there anything you'd like to change about what you're seeing right now?
Mhm.
So some people are so happy with who they are, and this has
Mhm.
just got me. And other people say, I don't like this at all.
Mhm.
Okay, let's see what we can do to help you to change into the person you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So there could be quite a significant shift in terms of the interactions you have with your clients in terms of them going from their everyday life and getting on with stuff. And
Yes.
I suppose sort of, I say putting up with things. Well, I suppose they might well do, just sort of saying, well, that's my life. So therefore I just get on with it. You know, you
Yes.
must see some fantastic changes in that outlook, if you like.
We do see some amazing changes, Richard, and quite often people will leave the job they're currently in because
Hmm.
they realize it's not serving them well, or
Hmm.
maybe even the relationship they're in because it's not serving them well anymore. So, yes, what the kind of journey we take them on is transformational.
Yeah. Mm.
And I ask them right at the start, what is it you want to change? So let's be very clear about where we're heading because we need to know when we get there. Otherwise, you'll fall for anything, really.
Okay, so in terms of that theme that I hear with a lot of people I talk to on the podcast here is that point, where are you moving towards?
Yes,
What is it you're looking for? Yeah,
yes,
absolutely. And from your point of view, I mean, taking that side of things into focus, you've been running your business in 2004. There must have been times that you've sort of gone off that path towards your goals that you've got set for you. How do you keep yourself motivated in terms of wanting to help people and see them transform and all those sort of things? Because it could be quite a heavy weight. What how have you maintained that for all these years? That's a very big question.
very big question. But I think it's all about doing what you were meant to do. I
Okay.
know that I was born to be a coach. I was
Hmm.
born to be a mother. I was born to nurture and grow people. I've got three children of my own.
Yeah.
This is what I do. This is an innate part of my being.
Hmm.
So I am very motivated, therefore, to do what I'm doing and to help people to grow. And I decided early on I would only work with clients I liked. So, there are some clients I've had to say, this is not working. This
Hmm.
relationship is not working. Let's find you somebody better for you.
Yeah.
So I only work with people I know I can actually help. And then it's a two-way thing and it's
Hmm.
very enriching and
Hmm.
motivating constantly. And
Absolutely.
that's happened all for 20 years.
That's
It just
fantastic.
keeps going.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that being able to challenge yourself in terms of making sure you keep focused on what it is you want and it energizes you. Because I think
Yes.
it's there are some people that can get a little bit confused about wanting to be able to help people and do the best for them, but they almost give too much of themselves away in doing that. It's the
Yes.
people that are selfless. I'm going to do everything for you, and no matter
Yes.
if it impacts me negatively or reduces my motivation levels, I'll do it for you because that's the way I'm set up. So that can be
Yes.
quite tricky. And I think people listening, let's not
Mhm.
go away from the idea you've got to look after yourself first as well as then be able to help others. Would that be fair to say?
absolutely right, Richard. Yes, I cannot coach and develop people unless I'm in good space myself,
Yeah.
which means having the right amount of sleep, right
Okay.
amount of exercise,
Yep.
eating properly,
Mhm.
breathing properly, all of those things to keep you grounded
Mhm.
and sure and steady so that you are that support and challenge for other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Support and challenge in equal measure. We can't let people just coast.
Oh, I like that. That's an interesting one. It'd be good to have a little bit more of a chat about that support and challenge piece there. Quick one though, breathing. Go on then. Give us a little bit more insight into that, because I've heard various things around it, and I don't know how much you focus on it, but I'm always thinking, well, I'm quite good at it because I keep doing it, so I can't be doing too bad.
You
Are
would
there other
think
things that you focus on yourself to help out?
yeah, absolutely. You would think we would all be absolutely expert at it because we
Yeah.
do it every day. But mostly we take our breath just from the top of the chest,
Hmm.
especially when you're at work, you're just talking to people, you're not breathing very deeply.
Okay.
So you have to, I say to leaders, especially when they're going from one meeting to another,
Hmm.
just stop and breathe before you go to your next meeting. And one young chap said to me at the end of a session, so Ali, what you mean is I've got to take 3 quick breaths before I go to my next meeting. No. If you just stop and take one really deep breath,
Hmm.
so you fill up your lungs. I'm a singer, so we use our diaphragms.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what we need to do. We need to be very aware of our lungs.
Yeah.
So I know lots of beautiful breathing exercises to just center people.
Yeah.
And even with one 7-minute breathing exercise, it can reduce people to tears
Wow.
because for the first time they connect their body
Yeah.
to what they're doing rather
Hmm.
than just their head.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing impact that these sort of things can have. And I think there's various people out there who have different views on what will work for them, what doesn't work for them. But I think giving people the insight to be able to say, actually, it may be, the physiological nature of more oxygen in the system that's playing a massive part. It may be the psychological pause in time just to stop for a second and, to your point, reconnect, or just blank stuff out and have that moment of almost a mini sort of meditation breath,
Yes.
isn't it?
And what that does for you, Richard, when
Mhm.
you're concentrating on the breath, your mind is not whirring at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Mhm.
So that's what it cuts out.
Yeah.
And of course, the whole of our education system, we play as toddlers.
Yeah.
They make us sit down when we go to school and they teach us from the waist up. As we go higher up the school, it's just they teach us from the
Yeah.
head up, and go
Yeah.
to university, it's just one side of the head.
I love that. Yeah, that's
And this is not me. This is Sir Ken Robinson, a great
yeah.
English professor who's no
Hmm.
longer with us, sadly.
Hmm.
But it's true the world over. We are not giving our children the rounded education they need. We're not giving leaders the grounding they need to be able to motivate and inspire their people.
Absolutely. And it is really interesting actually, because I've had several guests on the podcast again who've talked about education as well. Sally
Yes.
Earnshaw, the chief umpher, Gallagher as was at the time, which is a great terminology. She was talking a lot about the educational piece and the fact that it just doesn't help us fire and keep us motivated around
Yes.
drawing on the energy that we know will improve our performance, because when we're feeling that boost, it's absolutely
Yes.
fantastic. So when we're getting this boost and we're feeling energized and all these sort of things, then that support and challenge. So how do we go about supporting and challenging ourselves within what we're doing? Do we need somebody else to challenge us, or can we do it ourselves? How does that work?
It's always handy if you have some kind of accountability buddy. So, yes, you can do it yourself
Yeah.
as long as you're motivated to do that.
Yeah.
If you're not, you need somebody there to actually drive that for you. Now, high challenge, high support is the fundamental mindset in all the research we've done for our leadership program. It's the fundamental mindset of leaders. So when you think about the way leaders lead, think about an organization where there's a lot of high support, but very low challenge. What happens to the people? They coast, don't they? They're not pushed to be the best they can be. It's all very nice. We call that the place of comfort. It's nice, but people aren't motivated to achieve the best of their potential. In the opposite, where we've got an organization with high challenge and low support, people are pushed too hard. There's burnout, there's high staff turnover, because if you're just challenged and there's no support, it's all about bottom line performance. And that will only motivate a few types, as we know, those builders or the, from the motivational maps world. If you've got low challenge, low support, which is where many organizations find themselves in times of great change, like the pandemic, for instance, leaders didn't know enough and, they didn't know what to do any more than the people. It's a very unhealthy place to be for very long. So we're looking for this sweet spot of high challenge and high support in powerful and equal combination, because then we get commitment, consistent, high achievement and development, where people are motivated and engaged and give of their best, and they can then fly.
Sounds like a great place to work. Can I have a job? Brilliant. We'll go there, because I think everybody listening has probably got some really good examples of work they've been in where their leadership has not been in that equal support and challenge piece, and it's been very much one way or the other, and they may well have left according to the fact that well, this is a toxic environment, or actually this is just it's too easy for some people, because we go to work to also challenge ourselves and drive ourselves forward, which is really interesting. And this information that you talk about with support and challenge, I know your research in the past has sort of driven that around your course that you mentioned there, sort of the liberating leadership side of things. You mentioned when we've spoken previously about the name change that came about with that. That'd be really interesting to hear a little bit more about, because I think that connection between words we use and how something is perceived, and then how motivating it can be, is really, really powerful from the story that you sort of tell around that. So just wondered if you could share that with the listeners.
Certainly. Well, when I started my company in 2004, previous to that, I'd set up a management consultancy with a chartered occupational psychologist. And we were given some money by somebody who'd worked with Derek in the past. And he said to me, get what's in his mind. He said to me, get what is in his mind and get your trainer to come and deliver it to my people. So for 12 years, this work was coming out. I was getting Derek to talk. I was typing. We were testing it with all the clients we had at the time, like Gillette and Vodafone, the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, lots of big organizations and a whole load of little organizations. And at the time, the only title we could think of was Leading and Developing High Performance, because that's what it did. It helped leaders to lead and develop high performance, but it was a bit of a mouthful. Then in 2012, Insights, the company, brought out their deeper discovery model, which takes you to the level of archetypes. So it takes you on that deeper journey. And one of my archetypes...
Hello, hope you're enjoying this episode. When you've finished, why not subscribe to the Motivational Mindset Podcast to learn more about motivation in business and beyond. Thanks. Now, back to the podcast.
That I hadn't noticed was Liberator. And that's about transforming people from their limiting beliefs and setting them free. And I went, this is what I do. So at that time, sort of almost 10 years on from setting up my business, 12 years on from setting up my business, I renamed the program Liberating Leadership. It then began to be found all over the world, in Lagos, in Dallas, in Amsterdam. It was crazy. The word liberating was really powerful. And when I said, how did you find me to these people? Oh, it was the word liberating. And we renamed our self-directing professional program Pioneering Professional. And that caused a bit of a stir, because pioneer can have it's quite a challenging word if we think about the early pioneers. And actually what they were doing is quite incredible, to put yourself out that far. But maybe how that happened is not great. But anyway, the words were important at that time. But now 10 years on, 2024, I'm renaming the programs again. And it's just simply the liberator and the pioneer, to just keep things super simple. This is what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just thought that story was fantastic, in terms of that even just one word can make that much of a difference to people in terms of their connection to it. And then that sort of leads on to that whole idea of the motivational piece, from your mindset that you have. If you're using terminology, words that actually are more positive in their outlook, or more challenging in their outlook as well, which is fantastic, as we've just heard, they can really make a massive difference, in terms of that internal self-talk. I can't, or I can, I am not. All of those things are very, very small and very simple, but make a massive impact. It was quite
absolutely. Well, also as an NLP practitioner, so neuro-linguistic programming, there are certain techniques in that, if we frame things in the positive, the mind doesn't hear negatives. But there's two sides to that. If you're always saying to yourself, I'm rubbish, I'm rubbish, I'm rubbish, your mind is very clever, and it looks for things to support you. So it'll make you do things. Look, see how rubbish you are. If you want to be rubbish, we'll just show you how. So if you turn it to, I'm brilliant, I'm brilliant, I'm brilliant, not only does it change your physiology, saying those words, your brain now goes, oh, we're now brilliant. Right, we'll look for other examples. So whatever you're thinking, your brain will help you. So you might as well stick positive stuff in there to help you more than constantly fill your mind with negative stuff. And we're so good at beating ourselves up.
Aren't we? And it's a societal thing as well, isn't it? But particularly from a different country's point of view, it's not good. It's not the thing to be seen to be outwardly confident, and and be, I'm good at what I do. Oh well, it's particularly in the UK, it's quite scary to a certain degree, isn't it?
It is indeed. And where you think of our evolution, I mean, my grandma would say to me, it's vain to look in the mirror. So that was the thought then. Now I encourage people to look in the mirror, because you need to be able to practice. You need to see how you're looking, see how you're being, and talk to yourself in positive language. So that you believe it yourself.
It's quite interesting, isn't it? So I think, that sort of comes on with the younger generations coming through in terms of technology and being online all the time, etc., and recording themselves and doing Instagram posts or whatever it is, we're outwardly looking at that. And I've done it myself, I'm thinking, oh, blimey, heck, can I just get on with stuff and stop, looking in the phone and doing all that sort of thing? So actually it puts a different spin on it. In terms of where I'm sort of coming from as well, which is really, there you go. You see, every day's a school day. I'm learning something today myself. Thank you, Ali. To actually take a step back and go, okay, so, what's the situation? Why are they doing that? Why, and rather just making those snap decisions or assumptions that, oh, that's a bad thing.
Yes.
That's a bad thing.
I think that's where ego might get in the way. So if people are
Right.
doing it because of ego,
Yeah.
it can come across in a much more brash, look at me kind of way.
Yeah.
But what we're talking about is just some of the techniques we use to help people to be more positive about themselves.
Yeah. Okay.
And actually allow their natural brilliance to shine. So we're allowing that brilliance to shine through being properly motivated and inspired to do what we do without ego bothering us.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And that's an interesting one in terms of the ego side of things, but just exploring that a little bit, because it's something, a word that a lot of people hear about ego and all that sort of thing. And is it as simple as just being that, an ego is, oh, I've got this internal voice that says, oh, I'm absolutely amazing and I've got to tell everybody about it? Or is there more complexity to our egos, and do they sort of get in our way?
I am talking very superficially about ego here because it does go deep. And of course, we all have ego, and we need to understand the ego and how it impacts us. So are we authentic? Are we consistent? Are we pushing it out or holding it in too much? It's being very aware of the impact of the ego or the id or whatever we call it.
Yeah.
The energy.
Right. And that's really interesting, actually. This connects again from that energy point of view, which we've been talking about all the way through this, and energy, motivation, and all of those great things that we've got to keep focusing on. Just to bring it back a little bit towards that leadership aspect that we've been talking about there. From a motivational point of view, how are things looking from your point of view in terms of leadership across the UK? We could say business in general, but are things changing? Are you seeing trends coming out in terms of the way leadership is going, or are we still having the same issues, but just over and over again in a slightly different way?
Things are changing, but it's almost like a pendulum that swings too far.
Okay.
We're very good at saying this is no good, let's go over there. Actually, we just need balance in the middle.
Right. Okay.
And it's seeking that balance. And no, the statistics around about leadership at the minute are horrific. Like 82% of people are not motivated, not engaged in their businesses, mainly because of their leader. People tend to leave because of their manager and not because of the organization.
Yeah.
So leaders have got a lot to answer for, but they're not to be blamed because they get into post because of their skill, their specialism, their entrepreneurial flair, because they've been around the longest. They're not in that position because they think, I'd love to lead a team of people. So there is a tremendous gap between what leaders are taught and what they should be taught. Because we're just taught skills and knowledge, and that's all we measure over everything else. We don't measure leadership and interpersonal skills. So at the moment, leaders are expecting their new recruits to be motivated and engaged and have huge amounts of emotional intelligence. But if we're not teaching them that right from the start, the recruits are expecting to go into the organization and be trained in all of that. So there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. And so in terms of that work of being able to be done, is that coming from earlier on? I mean, you mentioned that sort of education piece. Is there potential for that to help out? And again, you can't say all the schools have got to do it because the time and money and all that sort of stuff we know, but sounds like that there's an opportunity there as well in terms of that leadership.
Yes, we have a saying in our world that what gets measured gets done. So at the moment in school with the national curriculum, we're measuring maths, English, science. We're not measuring anything else. And actually the school system doesn't motivate every child. So, we've got 3 children. For 2 of them, it was great. They thrived.
Yeah.
The third one spent most of his time on detention or out the door because it just wasn't the place for him. He needed to learn in a different way.
Yeah.
And so we need a different way of educating our children. I know there are forest schools, there are Montessori, there are all sorts of different ways of trying to do things, and we shouldn't stick to a rigid thing. And if in the national curriculum we started to measure leadership, interpersonal skills, social skills, they would start to improve. But we shouldn't do it at the expense of the skills. We need to find a way of bringing them all together.
Yeah, absolutely. So if anybody listening's got the answer to that one, if you want to write on in to we'vegotttheanswer.com, that'd be great. Yeah, I don't think we've got enough time today to come up with the solution for that one, but I think it's an absolute. I'm an ex-teacher myself, so being in the environment where here's the curriculum, this is a prescribed piece, this is what you've got to do, these are this is where people have got to get to, and if they step out of line, etc., etc. And having been brought up in that myself, I almost fell into it as a teacher quite easily. Oh, well, I did the kids, so therefore we'll just keep doing it because it's easier.
Yes.
And I think that's a really interesting piece that almost comes back to your support and challenge piece around the whole leadership piece is just, let's not get into that comfort zone where everything is really easy, because nothing changes in the comfort zone.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's
absolutely right.
Yeah.
And you're not a teacher anymore, Richard, which is interesting.
No. And one of the reasons why is because I didn't get any energy from it. And thinking back about it, and it may well have been the fact that I see myself, and I know I am a more creative person from my motivational sort of stance, creativity, change, doing different things a lot of the time. When I'm put in something where I'm doing the same thing over year after year after year, okay, different children coming through, but you're doing the same thing year after year after year. It's like, okay, that's not going to keep me motivated. That's not going to,
absolutely right.
And I think that's quite an interesting one for, again, people listening, in terms of what, as you go through your year, and we've come into September now, we're getting to the end of the year. Is it going to be the same thing where you're going to go, right, well, I'm going to look forward to the Christmas party in December. Then I'll get a great time to actually just stop because I don't really like what I'm doing. And then I've got to start it all again in January. And, is that what you want? For some people, absolutely may well be.
Interesting. And lots of insights practitioners used to be accountants, but they're not now. Because, of course, accountancy is a profession you're pushed towards and teaching.
Yeah.
So but nobody at school would say, oh, when you leave school, you could go and, practice using psychometric tools and help people, because they would just think, oh, that's rubbish. It's what we value in society. Really
interesting, isn't it? And again, it's, well, we've always done it, so therefore, the accountancy, the legal firms, etc. And this is really interesting from my sort of other aspect of the work that we do. We look at customer experience side of things as well, and customers' expectations are changing, and how they can get what they need is changing. So actually, if I need a will, back in the past, I'd have to go to the lawyer because that's where it was. Not anymore. We've got changing technology, AI coming in. I can tell Chat GTP to produce me a will with this known people. Okay, and it will do it. So we're thinking, okay, so where do people sit with that then? And how does leadership cope with that? This technology change and people. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, which we probably won't have time for, Richard.
Sorry, I'm just doing, this is what I love about doing my podcast as well, because I start thinking about stuff myself. Well, okay, that's an interesting link. That'd be good to. No doubt you'll be thinking about that yourself, and I'm sure there'll be things on the horizon that'll start to sort of come into your offerings and your programs, etc.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And indeed it is. But yes, if
Yeah.
leaders are leading with high challenge, high
Yeah.
support, it transcends everything, because it then will make sure we use AI properly and not
Great.
abuse it.
Yeah.
And stuff.
It's very simple. I love it. The fact that, you're going back to stuff, and we often make it more complicated than it needs to be. And I think that's one of the key things, I think, sort of coming out of this conversation we've had here. I'm just going to start to bring this sort of to a close. But I think that support and challenge piece for me is my core takeaway from today. So thank you very much for that, from that point of view. Just in terms of that motivational piece and how you've kept your motivation going, is there something that you'd sort of share with the listeners in terms of, from a motivational point of view, what they might want to keep an eye on or focus on going forward?
In terms of motivation, if ever it's waning, stop what you're doing and just do something different for a minute. Even if it's going outside, walking around the garden for a minute.
Yeah.
Even if at a low ebb in my business, I thought, I don't know what to do next. I went to the Mercedes garage, because I always wanted a Mercedes, and had a little test drive around the Wiltshire countryside. Said to the guy, one day I'm coming back to buy one.
Yeah.
And he said, that's fine. And I got back to my desk and I was super motivated to crack on.
Love it. Thank you very much for sharing that. I think, again, it's very simple. Let's stop and have a look at that. That's great. Ali, thank you very much for today. If people would like to get in contact with you and hear more about your programs and your development side of things, what's the best way for them to get into contact with you?
Well, everything ends in alistewartandco.com.
Okay.
So if it's the web, it's www.alistewartandco.com. If it's LinkedIn, it's alistewartandco.com. Instagram, Ali Stewart and Co.
Great.
It's just all Ali Stewart and Co.
Fantastic. So if you do want to, please do reach out and see what Ali Stewart and Co can offer you going forward. Thanks ever so much once again, Ali.
Thank you,
have a
Richard.
great rest of your day, and here's to being motivated.
Thank you.
This was a Switch Motivation production from Switch Performance Limited. Music by Dennis Kischuk from Pixabay, the Motivational Mindset Podcast. Download, listen, subscribe.